Tonight in the shed, standard suspension maintenance. We're going to drop the lowers, change the oil, put new seals in there. And whilst these are older forks, 2008, the basic principle of changing the lowers is exactly the same. This applies to not just Rock Shox, but any air fork with a cartridge-based dampener, as the oil in the lowers is merely lubricating the bushings so that those stanchions have something nice and smooth to glide in. When that oil gets contaminated, either through just age and use, misuse with pressure washers, or just the dust seal starting to degrade over time, that oil can slowly make its way out, and dirt and moisture can make their way in. When the oil dries out or gets contaminated, it's going to wear those bushes, and that's when you start to get damage to your lowers. So that's why you need to kind of keep to the service intervals, just a little plus or minus. Refresh that lower oil and change the dust seals if there's any sign of damage or cracking. Now to do that, you're going to need dust seals. You're going to make sure that they're the correct size and type of dust seal for your fork. Now there's a lot of universality amongst sizes of and types of fork within a particular manufacturer's range, but always ensure you're getting the right size for your fork. Some have foam rings, some have oil seals. It again depends on that fork. If in doubt, check on your manufacturer's website or give someone like TF Tuned a call. They're incredibly helpful and they know their stuff. Once you've got the dust seal kit, you're also going to need all the relevant lubes and oils and suspension specific greases. You're going to have to ensure they're the correct weight of oil, and you're also going to need to make sure you know the oil volumes. And by that, how much oil in which lower leg, or how much in the dampener, for example, as if you have too much, you could end up with hydraulic lockout and not get the full travel, or even damage parts of your fork. And if you're too little, if it's the case of the dampener, your rebounds can be all over the place, things can get a bit choppy, and you might again end up damaging stuff. I'm going to assume if you've come here to work on a fork, you know the drop fork set frame, so super time lapse. One thing that's mission critical with any suspension servicing is that everything is ridiculously clean. I've currently doused this in some PEs. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for wiping everything down and making sure it's all tickety-boo and internet clean. That's fine on the outside, but on the inside you're going to need some harder stuff. You're going to need some isopropyl alcohol, and you're also going to need lint-free rags for cleaning all that inside stuff out. You don't want to leave any fibres or bits of lint or anything inside, because that's going to gunk around in the oil and just cause things to bind up. Not so good. So lint-free microfiber, and don't be tempted to reuse unless it's like the rag you use specifically for that. Go out, they're not expensive, get buy a fresh pack. Nice even pressure. The last thing you want is to round one of these things off or to shear a bolt. Nothing in here is going to be massively torqued, so you shouldn't need a whole lot to get stuff off. Likewise, we're taking the rebound bolt out. Nice even pressure. You don't want to round anything off or shear a bolt. There we go. Now I'm going to leave that nut in just a touch. The reason being, it allows me to put the socket on. I can tap this with a hammer to help break the seal within the lowers. That'll let me to remove the lower there. If I go straight on the bolt itself, then I'm going to end up rounding and damaging stuff. So use that nut to help spread that force and load. Use the power of 4 to help break that seal at the bottom. Depending on how much oil is in the lower, you're going to get either a gushing torrent, or in the case of the SIDs, a dribble, because there's very little in there to start with. We'll do a similar process on the other side, again using the nut to spread the load and tapping that in. You hear it break there? Just give this a wee quick spritz down again, just cleaning as we go. At this point, it's a good idea to check the lowers for any scratches or marring or discolouring, and likewise inspect the seals for any signs of obvious damage where they've been letting in dirt and grit. In this case, I can still see some of the grease from when these were last serviced, so actually not too bad. They've done pretty well. Also have a look inside and check the bushings themselves. They'll be kind of like a tan kind of colour. There'll be one on each side at the top and one lower down. You're going to look for them for any, again, signs of obvious damage, wear, inconsistency. If you see any metal coming through, then those bushings are done and they're going to start causing damage to your stanchion tubes. And if that's the case, step back, send these to the professionals because you won't have the tools, trust me, to replace those bushings. And it might actually work out being cheaper if you have an older fork to find a new lower casting with fresh bushings on the old Pirate Bay. But if everything's looking not bad, then we're just on to standard routine maintenance. And again, it's just cleaning everything down, popping out the seals, and then putting in fresh seals, fresh O-rings, and then reassembling with all the specific fluids. Pick or fine Allen key to help you lift them out. Just be careful not to tear them in case you have to reuse them. Notice I'm wrapping everything in a lint-free cloth, so I'm not going to damage anything when I'm lifting it out with my box wrench. Job done. Get everything surgically clean. We've got our microfiber cloth on a non-marring dowel, or in this case plastic rod. So at this stage, if all you're doing is a lower service, you're now ready to reassemble with fresh seals. A good generous coating and let it soak in over quite some time, so there's a lot in there. To install the new dust seal to the lowers, you're going to need a special driver tool. Or if you're being particularly ghetto, you can do it using your bare hands and a microfiber cloth. Start by popping the garter spring off, because you don't want to damage that. Apply some suspension specific grease to where the seal is going to be going in. Line it up on the inside so it's flush there, and press a little bit at a time, working your whole way around. You can use a microfiber cloth so you're not pushing too solidly in one portion or the other, and just work your way a little bit at a time. Regardless how you install your dust seal, ensure that it is fully installed and that there isn't any of the lip of the dust seal proud of the lip of the fork lower. That's properly seated in there. The next step is to install those pre-soaked foam rings. Pinch them in half, slide them in underneath the dust seal. Working them in a little bit as you go the whole way around. Be careful that they're seated nicely and they're not snagged. That they feel like they're in their little rebate nice and evenly the whole way around. Also going to apply some suspension specific grease very liberally onto the inside lip of that seal. I want it absolutely clarted. So the next stage of the operation is to reinstall the lowers to those uppers. Now this can be quite tricky as the new seals are going to be really tight and those tolerances are going to be really fine. And you don't want to cut or damage your new seals on the lowers of the fork. So to help us slide those on, everyone has their own way of doing it. What I find works well is to grease the first low part of the stanchion. And how I like to do this is I like to get one half on, so I'll kind of like come in and loop it up. Instead of trying to push it and pop it at once, get one part and work it in. So let's see how that works out for us. Some people try, and I have done in the past, to get one done then the other. So that, I'm going to change this camera angle so you can see a bit clearer what's going on. Also, always ensure that any O-ring that you have to mark your travel has been reinstalled, because if you start doing that with a zip tie, you're going to have time. So I've got one just kind of started. There we go. Our fork is back together. I'm going to clean off any suspension fluid or grease that's made its way onto it, because we don't want any muck from the trail to stick to that grease and create a grinding paste. So with the lowers and the stanchions all back together, it's now time to put our oil bath oil in our lowers. Now this oil is merely lubing, as I said earlier, those bushings and keeping the seals nice and slick from the inside. If you have an open bath dampener as opposed to a cartridge, you're going to have quite a lot of oil in one side. On older Zockies and coil forks, you're going to have quite a bit on both sides, but it depends on your fork. So ensure you have the correct weight of oil and the correct volume for each side of your model year. If in doubt, check your serial number. There's quite often serial checkers on the websites. As you see, I've got a syringe with a hose attached so I can get in there without dropping anything, be nice and accurate. On this 2009 Rock Shox SID, I have a measly 5mm in each side. So I'm using, again, the accuracy that is inherent with a syringe. Too little and you might dry stuff out and it won't work as well. Too much and you might create a hydraulic lock situation. One thing you will need at this stage are fresh crush washers. Crush washers are nylon washers which bend and deform to fit perfectly between the bolt and the fastening surface, i.e. the bottom of these lowers. They are single use though. So when you're doing any lower service, even if you're keeping the seals, you're going to need fresh crush washers. Try saying that when you're drunk. Good thing is, they are not expensive. But ensure you get the right ones for your model and your fork. Rock Shox are pretty much Rock Shox ones, likewise at Fox. If you get a service kit, you will get them with those. Then just put some air back in the fork. You will of course have taken a record of what air was in there before. So one final clean down. And it's time to reinstall in your bike, and you have now successfully serviced the lowers and done a dust seal replacement on your forks. Go have a cup of tea. Thanks for watching. Do the like and subscribe if you